Head in the game, guys? Thank you. All right, so we gave you the quiz. The quiz has improved for sure. Gave you some time to talk about them. Hopefully we're in really good shape by tomorrow for the third and the final quiz in the series. I have a number of quizzes made up for the next several weeks. Remember, we have a test next Friday, and then I think there's a test like 3 weeks after that. We're in the middle of what I would consider to be some of the more tested stuff on the Regents exam. So we really, really, really have to step up and make this happen. Factoring, super important. Some of you still got number 3 wrong on the quiz, right? That should be 2c plus 9, 2c minus 9. You have to recognize that difference of 2 perfect squares. It has to be an automatic thing. You know, when I drive a car, I don't have to think when I see a red light to step on the brake. It's automatic. If I had to think to step on the brake, I might get in an accident. It has to be a built-in automatic response. Likewise, if you see something like 4c squared minus 9, it has to be a built-in automatic response that says you're going to be able to get this right. Okay, so I looked on my Finder, and on this particular laptop, I couldn't find this problem. I'm sure it's on my other laptop, but I don't feel like taking the time to get it done. So let's do it together. You have a 500-foot roll of chain link fencing in a large field. You want to fence in a rectangular playground. What are the dimensions of the largest playground area that you could choose? Anybody come up with an answer? Go ahead.
150 for the length and 100 for the width.
All right, let's see how that works. Okay. 150 by 100, and if I do 150 times 100, that would give me 15 and 3 zeros, 15,000 as the area. Does anybody have another thought, another possible size? Right, if I add this up, I do get 250, and the other two sides are 250, so that does add up to a 500 square foot, or a 500-foot roll of chain link fencing. Does anybody have another idea of what could be one with a larger area? Well, you know what, I'm going to do one. Ready? I'm going to do 160 by 90. And let's see what we come up with there. I think that's 14,440. Can somebody check that on a calculator? 160 times 90, I think it's 14,400. Yeah? Okay. Question?
250.
What do you mean?
200 for the length and 50 for
Okay, let's see what happens with that. 250, and if I multiply them, I get 10,000. Hey, what do you notice about the areas here? They're shrinking. Huh. It seems to me that the further these numbers are apart, like the 200 and the 50, or the 160 and the 90, or the 150 and the 100, the further they are apart, the smaller the area gets. Does that make sense? What would happen if I did this? 125 by 125. Oh, but a square is a rectangle. Oh, yes, it is. What makes something a rectangle? It has what?
2 sides and 2 different.
4 right angles. Oh, yeah.
That's not what they taught us.
Who's they?
Them.
I'll guarantee
Voldemort.
you if I walk into Mr. Frank and say, Mr. Frank, did you tell them that a square is not a rectangle?
No, he told us that a rectangle has 2 different.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No.
I guarantee you.
A rectangle, listen carefully, listen carefully. A rectangle can have a different length and width. A square cannot. But a square is a type of rectangle. It's very similar to this analogy. Are you a mammal?
Yes.
Is a mammal necessarily you? No, a mammal could be a dog, could be a bat. Likewise, you are a mammal, but a mammal doesn't have to be you. A square is a rectangle, but a rectangle doesn't have to be a square.
Okay. But rectangles.
How should you know that?
Still have
Okay, well, two things. First off, excuse me, if nobody taught you that, well, now you're taught. All right, listen, I know there's this built-in tendency in all of us to want to get everything right all the time. Sid, what is our softball saying?
putting you on the spot.
Hello, my name is Sid. And what? I'm not perfect. I do not expect perfection out of you guys, but it's really important to understand something. Why? By definition, A rectangle is a quadrilateral with 4 right angles. That's it, that is the definition of a rectangle. Oh, it is. I'm not lying to you, it is. And a square is a very special rectangle. It's actually, there's another type of quadrilateral, I don't know if you've ever heard this word, called a rhombus.
Yeah.
Okay. A rectangle is thought of as this. A rhombus, God bless. A rhombus is important because all 4 sides are equal. And when I actually taught this in the high school years ago, I used to call this Mr. Rectangle and Miss Rhombus, and if they got together, they made a square. And a square had the properties of both. So a square, would it make sense to you to say that a square is a type of rhombus?
No.
Yes, it is, because doesn't a square have all 4 sides equal? And didn't we say a rhombus has to have all 4 sides equal? Well, likewise, a square is a type of rectangle. It's a very special rectangle.
Shapes.
Now, not every rectangle is a square. Not every rhombus is a square. But a square, every single square is a rhombus. And every single square is a rectangle. Okay? Now, likewise, I think you'll find if you do 125 times 125, you get a number greater than 15,000. I do not happen to know it off the top of my head. What is 125 times 125? What do you got?
1,500. I mean,
Give me the numbers.
15,000.
It's more than 15,000.
15,625.
15,625?
I was getting it out.
All right.
But everyone was interrupting me.
All right, so that would be the greatest, and it is always, listen carefully, it is always the case that the largest area you can get out of any rectangle with a given perimeter is the square that matches it. I'll give you a, for instance, let's do one with one of an area of 20. I should say a perimeter of 20. If it's a perimeter of 20, it's 5 times 5 and the area is 25. Another way to come up with 20 would be, well, I'm gonna go 7 and 3, okay? And that's 21. So it's always the biggest when it works out to be a square. Okay, so that was the first question. Now, we're gonna go through 2 more questions that should be very like the work we've done the last couple of days. I would like you to work together on this. I think it should be pretty comfortable. Numbers 1 and 2, I think that they should be very doable for you guys. So get rocking on numbers 1 and 2. I'll put the answers on the board in a couple of minutes and show you how I would have graded them if they were quiz questions so that you'll know how you're doing. Okay, feel free to talk to people if you need help doing it, or even if you just want to bounce ideas off of them. Okay, go ahead, go.
Yeah.
the Grinch.
I didn't even say that.
Oh, okay.
Wow, what a snitch.
Right under the bus.
But he's getting mean for stuff I didn't do.
Yeah, exactly.
Say it loud, I'm the victim.
I didn't.
That's okay. I do want you to try to do it on your own before you look at my answers, right? You do them both fully on your own before you look at them. Ah. One of these quizzes coming up is just a word problem like this. When you are done, you can look up and see if your answer matches.
No, this is him.
It goes around the same face.
Wyatt, are we concentrating here today or what?
Yeah,
Did you do your work?
yeah,
You sure?
yeah.
Okay, are there any questions about any of this? Any questions about any of this? How come on the first question about consecutive odd integers, I didn't reject any answers, but on the second one about the rectangle, I did? Molly?
Because it has to have an area of 100.
Well, if this was negative 13 and the other one was negative 10, when I multiply them, I get 130 also. Okay?
You can't have negative.
Yeah, you can't have a negative length, so that's why it's rejected. Can I have a negative number?
Yeah.
Are there odd numbers that are negative?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's no problem. Any other questions about how to go about doing these?
No.
Listen, very, very carefully. I believe these are easy questions now. When we first started, I think they were challenging. At this point in time, if you cannot look at those questions and go, piece of cake, there's a problem. I'll be at the library tonight, 5:30 to 7:30. I will be at the library next week, 5:30 to 7:30, and I'm at Extra Help in the mornings. So that would be a good time to run this down. Now, if you're looking at these questions and you're saying, I'm getting these right, and if you're looking at the questions, the other one is that problem with the garden and the pathway around it, okay? If you can get that question right and these questions right, you're good. You don't have to knock yourself out. You don't need extra help. But if you're not getting these right, you need extra help, okay? Also the factoring. If you're having a problem with factoring, you need extra help. If you are getting all the factorings right, and by that I mean greatest common factor, factoring a basic trinomial, which we're all very good at least from what I can see. Difference of two perfect squares, and also the plan B, where you gotta multiply and then divide back in. If you can do all of that, you're in great shape. You're doing really, really, really well. Any questions? Okay, tomorrow we start learning about this thing called completing the square. And the next day we start learning about this thing, after 3 days of completing the square, we start learning about this thing called the quadratic formula. We'll actually probably start incorporating that on Friday a little bit. And then when those are all done, we will be having a test next week. Pre-test Wednesday and Thursday, test Friday. And as I've been saying, we want to get ahead of the curve. If you can factor, if you are great at factoring, if you can do questions like this, and if you can solve quadratic equations, you are in great shape. The only other things you're going to do, 1 or 2 review questions. I know there's a graphing inequalities on it. And then there's also a 1 completing the square question, which you're going to learn about in the next couple of days, and 1 quadratic formula question. Other than that, you already know everything on the test, if you're good at all of this stuff. And this is super important on your regions. So if you can do this now, you're ready for everything like this on your regions. Okay? Any questions? All right, you can start your homework together. Get going on that. Yep. If any of you guys have other questions about either last night's homework or a quiz or something like that, you want to bring it up, let me know.